So I just got back from the Bloomington, Indiana Farmers Market, and I want to make this video as sort of a challenge to the Ron Paul nerds everywhere. What did you do today to further the campaign? Did you go out to your local farmers market? That's what I want to focus on today. Take a look at a map of how many meetup groups there are, and here's a list of how many farmers markets there are in the country. Imagine if every single group, or even if half of all the groups, had a table at their local farmers market. Now you need to go on the website of whoever runs your farmers market and find out what you have to do. Do you have to get a permit or pay anything? It's free here in Bloomington, so we had our table. You can see it there. We had something targeted towards our audience. We're in a largely Democrat area, so we had a flyer made that says why Democrats should support Ron Paul 2012, addressed kind of key issues, and then we basically say, hey, and even if you're still voting Obama in the general election or unsure, Ron Paul does need your vote in Indiana's Republican primary, which is an open primary, and we tell them the date and whatnot, and we also say join us at meetup.com/RonPaulBloomington. The most important thing you need to remember when you table to have a clipboard, a couple clipboards if possible, and to have this, which is our sheet, which basically has a place for name, email, phone, even address, and talents. The most important thing to get is name, email, and phone number. Really go all out and try to get that phone number. If you ask for it, actually most people will give it to you. Put a little star by people who just want information. Be able to identify what kind of, is this a hardcore supporter? Is this somebody just curious? Is this somebody that needs, might put a D by their name if they're a Democrat, so they need to be reached out to in a different way. It lets you know how to target them in the future. So anyway, the main point is, what did your group do this weekend? It's still early, but it's time to get out there, because basically you'll find, we even had Ron Paul supporters come up and say, oh, you think he's gonna run? People still don't even know that he's running. So what is effective tabling? Effective tabling is when you have your table, you avoid the trap of having just like a weird 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper with some bizarre thing about the Fed or something. You need a nice, attractive banner. We took this image made by a Ron Paul marketer guy. I don't think he was chosen by the official campaign, but we don't have the official signs yet. So we went to FedEx Kinko's and had really nice banners made. I stress that's very important. We don't need to ingrain this sort of fringe mentality, and that has to do also with avoiding talk about 9/11 or people that want to come put conspiracy stuff on the table. Really, this is not the time for that. Just say no. When I see somebody walk by, they kind of make eye contact or they have a knowing glance with Ron Paul, I say, you're interested in Ron Paul? Notice how I worded that. So it implied that they are. Kind of shake your head yes, and a large percentage of people actually say, yeah, I'm looking at him, it's interesting, I really like what he said in the debates. And so you bring them over, then ask, what's your background? Do you lean more conservative or liberal, Democrat? And so they say Republican, and then you know how to approach them as a Republican. If they say Democrat, you know how to approach them as a Democrat. So really brainstorm with other friends in your group about how to do that. So if they're Democrat, you might want to appeal to them to vote in the primary first and show that maybe they have issues about transparency in government, Patriot Act, and the war, where they're with Ron. So work at him from that angle. Someone who's already a fiscal conservative, Ron's got the best record there, so you know how to approach them there. So again, find out their cards, whether they're coming at you as a liberal or conservative first, and then you know how to approach them. We actually had a poster board up that was more geared towards a conservative, but if someone was a Democrat, I immediately pointed them away from that towards our flyer, and then I just had a conversation with them. But it is important to understand that Ron Paul is a true conservative, and not be afraid of that label. So I want to say something specifically about tabling. Tabling, it's important to stand in front of your table. Think about all the tables that you always see with sulking teenagers, sulking older people, sitting in lawn chairs, burning up in the heat, just kind of sulking with their shoulders in, and they're sitting at the table. They're like, oh, you want a flyer? No, you got to stand in front of your table. You got to stand and have a smile on your face and say, oh, are you curious about Ron Paul? Would you like to end the war in Afghanistan? Engage on some sort of issue, depending on again, what community you're reaching out to. Again, stand in front of your table, guide them to the table. You kind of stand to the side. 2 people works great. You might have one person behind the table, one person in front with a flyer. Be very friendly, make eye contact. Remember, guide them to the table, and then you kind of share with them, and you're on their side of the table. So it's less of like a sort of kiosk credit card scam scenario. By the way, a little thing you can use if you're on a quick run, you can use an ironing board, believe it or not. That's an old school thing I saw as I traveled during the last campaign. People doing exit polling. You can set up an ironing board, have your material out there, put a little banner on it, and people can't even tell it's an ironing board. It's very quick. You can set up really quickly, especially if you're in a spot where you might get kicked out really quickly. You can set up and then go at it. Again, that's such a different world. I can't believe I just said that. When you stand in front of your table, that delineates the people who know how to do tabling from the people who don't. So a lot of success. We had, we decided before the event what our next meetup is, 7 p.m. Tuesdays at the Pizzeria on Kirkwood. By the way, I found that place by another one of our supporters was wearing a Ron Paul shirt when he went in there to eat, and the business owner went nuts about it. And so that's how you're going to make your connections in your community. I know this is kind of rambling. I just wanted to get that out there as a challenge to the Ron Paul community. What are you doing to further the message? You got to get off Facebook, you got to get off YouTube, Twitter, and whatever nerdy stuff you do on Ron Paul forums or Daily Paul. It's time to get out there on the street. At Farmers Market is a great place to start and get your feet wet in what it takes to canvas in a tabling situation.